I think I am a country guy.
You are whatever you want to be. You're Pat Boone, and you can do whatever you want. That is.
What if I told you the first teen idol in American history, the boy every girl screamed for, the star who outsold Elvis, died nearly penniless? In a plane no one wanted to fly? Ricky Nelson had it all: fame, fortune, and the most watched family on TV. But behind the perfect smile was a man unraveling. Divorce, debts, lawsuits, and a tragic finale that left fans stunned. And his legacy nearly erased. I didn't originally want to revisit this moment. Truth is, they'd been nudging me for 2 years. I told myself I'd roll out some fresh tracks for the 22,000-strong crowd. But when the lights hit, we ended up playing only the old classics. The crowd, they didn't cheer. They just stared. It felt off, eerie even. And that feeling stuck with me in ways I never expected. What I'm about to tell you is the first layer of a story that goes way deeper than a cold stage and silent fans. Half a year ago, after Ricky Nelson's tragic plane crash in 1985, the world thought his legacy evaporated. They believed he'd left nothing behind, drained by divorce, tangled in debt. But then, something astonishing surfaced. His brother stumbled upon a hidden will, sealed away for decades. When lawyers cracked it open, they uncovered claims of record companies bleeding Ricky dry through unauthorized deductions. It wasn't small change. It was shocking. The 4 kids were suddenly millionaires overnight. These weren't modest checks. They were settlements so massive even the judge paused mid-sentence in disbelief. And yet, one son received nothing. Why? That twist will blow your mind, but we'll get to that. Ricky, born May 8th, 1940, in Teaneck, New Jersey, wasn't your average kid. His dad led a big band. His mom was already appearing on screen. From cradle to camera, Ricky's life was public. He didn't have a regular childhood. His nursery rhymes were scripts, his playdates were rehearsals. By 8, while kids his age were swinging baseball bats, he was swinging lines and getting paid for it. He didn't choose fame. Fame chose him. By 10, he was acting alongside his brother, but that label, child star, barely scratches the surface. This was early reality TV, before we had apps, before A-listers. The lines between performance and personal were blurry. His playground was a studio lot, his bedroom lit by arc lamps. Still, there was something magnetic in his silence. A viewer could sense his quiet strength. That vulnerability made him real. In 1941, the family's home in LA, that iconic green and white Cape Cod on Camino Palmero, became part set, part sanctuary. Cameras rolled in the living room, dialogue echoed in the hallways. His parents, managers, producers, gatekeepers ran the house like a tightly wound show. There was little room for Ricky's own private voice. Asthma made things worse. For a child whose lungs struggled to carry him through a hallway, the weight of expectation must have felt crushing. He missed school. He missed friends. While others raced outside, he was trapped indoors, absorbing words, melodies, moments he couldn't yet live. This is where his intensity was born. Oh, and a hidden kind of strength that would fuel every performance later on. By 49, when he got himself and David onto the radio show, it was unheard of. Family acted as actors, a unique reality before reality existed. Critics said it was brilliant. Fans devoured every episode. They were obsessed. Ratings soared. And Ricky? He wasn't just playing a role, he was living it. Then came 1957, a moment that would define an era and define Ricky's teenage self. He performed Fats Domino's I'm Walking live on The Family Show. You could feel the shift in the room. The girls swooned, the charts exploded, and suddenly every teenage boy thought he had an answer. Overnight, that quiet kid was electric. But backstage, he was already drifting. Parties, fast cars, the attention, it all slipped through the gap between image and reality. That right there is your hook. Fame, youth, and friction. Ripe for drama. His style changed too. Sideburns grew in, hair slicked back. It was rebellion, but subtle. And it didn't sit well with his parents, who still held the reins. Imperial Records dropped Bebop Baby later that year. The song sold 750,000 copies before release. When it hit shelves, it tore through 1 million. It wasn't just catchy, it was strategic. His debut album, simply titled Ricky, topped the charts, and he was suddenly big business. In an era flooded with teen idols, Elvis, Pat Boone, the Everly Brothers, Ricky carved his own space. But fame brought chaos. He was deep in romances, Marianne Gaba, his on-screen love, with whom things were intense. He even gifted her a gold ring. She believed it meant forever. He didn't. And then there was Lori Collins. The two began writing songs together. No one knew about the late-night calls, the secret moments. From the outside, he was squeaky clean family TV star, but behind the lens, he was living life on fast forward. Understandably, his parents didn't like it. They were making $500 a week for their teenage son. But Ricky saw more. They saw distraction. Rumors of engagements? Squashed? Serious romances? Discouraged. But he was slipping away. Secret girlfriends, after-dark parties. A growing crave for freedom, and he still had this face, this name, this image to hide behind. Then, at 17, Ricky's first album hit #1 in October 1957. He was the youngest ever to do it, 2 weeks atop the Billboard LP chart. That's when everything clicked. His TV platform plus his music created a media machine. With AZ scripting songs into episode endings, audiences watched live and then bought immediately. This synergy was unprecedented. When I'm Walking aired in April, it shot to #4 on the charts. Its flip side, A Tender Teenage Confession, climbed to #2. That kind of impact was unheard of then. Mass reach fused with media control. And with each hit, Poor Little Fool, Travelin' Man, Have I Told You Lately That I Love You? He wasn't just ruling radio, he ruled living rooms. His father was the architect, his mother the executive. They didn't even allow an appearance on Ed Sullivan. Why share when you could monopolize? Then came Poor Little Fool, the first #1 hit on Billboard's newly created Hot 100. That was 1958, a teenager leading America's airwaves and living rooms. And yet, the churn of performance, the murmurs of control in his personal life, those tensions were growing. The echo of that silent crowd still haunts Ricky. Crowds that once roared now barely whisper. But as the 1958 summer rolled in, he was already rewriting history without realizing it. That August, a song nobody expected became the first ever to top Billboard's brand new Hot 100 chart. It was a teenage girl's heartbreak turned anthem, and it cemented Ricky's place in music lore forever. Only few know the song was crafted by Sharon Sheeley, just 15 at the time, driving up in a borrowed car, pitching her tune directly to him. What happened next wasn't planned. He didn't even want to record it. But he did. And the record stayed at #1 for 2 whole weeks, crossing charts from pop to country to R&B. Instant legend. That scalp-tingling hit, Poor Little Fool, didn't just break records, it vaulted Ricky to rock and roll stardom, yet his own voice questioned every triumph. Between 1957 and 1962, he charted 20 top 40 hits, second only to Elvis. His debut single alone, Bebop Baby, sold over 1 million copies, fueled by a ridiculous 750,000 pre-orders. By age 18, his financial deal was unheard of. $50,000 guaranteed over 5 years, plus total creative control. That kind of deal for a kid still in high school? Unheard of. Fans weren't just buying records, they were joining a movement. By 1960, the Ricky Nelson International Fan Club spread to over 9,000 chapters globally. He was everywhere: TV, radio, magazines. Then in 1959, he clinched a Golden Globe nod for his film debut in Rio Bravo alongside John Wayne. He wasn't just a singer, he was Hollywood's teenage prodigy. But fame always casts long shadows. With new acting gigs came new temptations. Custom suits and flashy cars became regular purchases. A $5,000 monthly allowance in 60s money? That's like $50,000 a month now. Parties, luxury, and swagger? For a young man barely out of his teens, it was intoxicating. Suddenly, fame was less a blessing and more a challenge to balance. And then came Travelin' Man in '61, a bold move when old-timers passed on it. It soared to #1 in April, selling over 1 million in weeks, while its flip side, Hello Mary Lou, raced up the charts too. Ricky's instinct wasn't just musical, it was strategic, picking songs others overlooked. But success drove him to demand more. Studio sessions felt suffocated under older session musicians who disdained rock and roll. Ricky quietly dropped them and formed his own band, hungry, ambitious, and ready to break molds. That group included James Burton, who'd later define electric guitar for a generation. Ricky wasn't just chasing a sound, he was shaping one. He wanted respect. He wanted control. He got it. Then the 1964 tsunami hit. The Beatles at Ed Sullivan sweeping all in their path. Within weeks, they held the top 5 spots. Elvis sputtered. Rick Nelson stumbled in their wake. His 1964 single For You barely scraped the top 40. The rules had changed overnight. It wasn't just music, it was culture shifting in real time. Around that same time, nearly slipping off the edge of his own success, came Chris Harmon. They met on Christmas Day in '61. He was 21, she was 16, daughter of football legend Tom Harmon, Hollywood royalty. On paper, it was a fairy tale, but behind closed doors, it felt more like a tightrope. She brought flash and glamour, he brought a career in flux. He struggled to match her lifestyle. He wanted stability, she wanted sparkle. When they wed on April 20th, 1963, it felt rushed. A mix of faith, fear, and necessity. She was pregnant, devout, and her family insisted on a quick Catholic ceremony. Ricky signed documents, took classes he didn't want, promised what he didn't feel. It wasn't love, it was a contract. Yet for a moment, it worked. His parents approved. Their families united. She stepped into the TV world too, appearing with Ricky and earning her own pay. But money flowed like water and no bucket had been placed. They had agents, accountants, assistants, but no plan. Years passed in luxury and illusion. By the mid-70s, the fantasy had collapsed. His music faded. She wanted the glamour of home. He needed the spotlight of the stage. They were drifting and debt followed fast. A $1 million settlement eventually closed the chapter, but not before heartbreak and exhaustion took their toll. 2 paychecks but no security. In 1965, the world saw them perform together in Love and Kisses, a lightweight comedy about teenage runaway love, directed by Ricky's father. On screen, they smiled. Off screen, the smiles snapped. It played like a mirror, their real tensions flickering through lines and scenes. He looked old for 25. She seemed lost in performance. The critics noticed. The cameras captured far more than romance. By 1969, he was desperate for escape, for authenticity. He formed the Stone Canyon Band, fusing country grit with rock beats. He recruited Randy Meisner, who'd later shake up the Eagles. They played small clubs, chased big dreams. Albums like Rick Sings Nelson were ahead of their time, but ahead of no one's interest. His fame was vaporizing, but his creative engine was firing on all cylinders. Then came the breaking point. October 15th, 1971 at Madison Square Garden. The crowd had shown up for nostalgia. He showed up with bell-bottoms and a country rock swagger. He played Rolling Stones, obscure cuts, new lyrics, only to be met with boos. Some say it was the police. He said it was the audience. That night he was humiliated, walked off stage. They later coaxed him back to play old hits, but the damage had been done. Yet, out of that moment came his masterstroke. He grabbed pen and paper and in 1972 released Garden Party, his own rebirth. It soared to number 6 on the Hot 100, topped Easy Listening, hit number 1 in Canada, and became his last top 40 triumph. More than a song, it was a declaration. You can't please everyone, so you gotta please yourself. A lesson earned the hard way. In the lyrics, he skewers critics, celebrates authenticity, and warns, never lose yourself to nostalgia's cage. One critic later said it turned his darkest day into his brightest moment. Behind the melody, it was reconciliation, with fans, with fame, with himself. The brief resurgence felt like a symphony's final crescendo. Garden Party cracked the top 10 for the first time in nearly a decade, and fans believed Ricky was back. But the high faded fast. His next singles barely registered, and by 1974, record labels had no idea how to market him. When Windfall sold poorly, the covers fell. He played at amusement parks, snagged minor TV roles, and MCA cut him loose. That single success became a bittersweet goodbye, one that confirmed what everyone suspected. The golden boy was now on the brink. By the mid-1970s, the illusions had unraveled. His marriage to Chris Nelson now carried the weight of a facade held together by appearances. Touring relentlessly to maintain their lifestyle, private schools, that sprawling home, they racked up bills faster than records sold. And the more Ricky chased the spotlight, the further he drifted from the one person who knew him best. Chris felt abandoned. Ricky felt caged. The warmth turned icy. Their words, once kind, soured into sharp argument. Their home, once a haven, became a tense battlefield. Then in 1977, after another grueling tour, Ricky returned expecting comfort. Instead, all his belongings were gone, moved into a rental house. Chris was inside with 2 Rams cheerleaders. The shock and humiliation marked a tipping point. No reconciliation possible now. Chris later blamed their collapse on alleged substance problems. Ricky's camp denied it, but the damage was permanent. Their union lay in ruins. 3 years later, Ricky tried again. In 1980, he purchased Errol Flynn's old mansion on Mulholland Drive for $750,000, hoping for a fresh start. But Chris demanded he abandon music and pursue acting. He refused. Music was all that kept him afloat. The mansion, instead of a sanctuary, became a gilded trap. Rumors circulated that it creaked with unseen presences. Lights flickered, whispers echoed, secrets too heavy to bear. The home became a pressure cooker of financial strain and emotional wreckage. Their divorce turned brutal. Chris accused him of neglect and alleged drug abuse. Ricky fired back, accusing her of drinking and neglect. Litigation dragged on for 5 years, consuming over $1 million in legal fees and draining them both emotionally. Their 4 children, ranging from toddlers to teens, watched as their parents tore each other apart. Finally, in late 1982, it ended. Ricky was ordered to pay $4,000 a month. He kept joint custody technically, but he was nearly bankrupt. The stage had become his refuge. He toured night after night simply to survive. His health dimmed, his spirit wore thin, and the boy who once lit up every room now felt empty. By 1985, Ricky was desperate, but he hated flying. Touring by road would collapse his windows of work. So he splurged on a used 1944 Douglas DC-3 for $118,000. Once Jerry Lee Lewis's plane. He hoped it would be economical, private. But the aircraft was old and temperamental. Engines failed, crew feared flying it. Guitarist Bobby Neal's wife begged him to stay behind. Bassist Patrick Woodward had survived emergency landings once already. Pianist Andy Chapin refused to board. But Ricky pressed on. He needed the gigs. In September, a failed engine left him stranded at Fairfield, a major gig gone. Then on December 31st, 1985, another mechanical issue delayed him for hours. They took off for Dallas. Somewhere over Texas, smoke filled the cabin. Pilots flew blind, sticking their heads out windows to follow the horizon. At 5:14 p.m., the plane clipped trees and crashed 2 meters from a runway near DeKalb, exploding upon impact. The wreckage spanned 150 yards. Only the pilots survived. Ricky, fiancée Helen Blair, and 5 crew members perished instantly. He was just 45. The music world fell silent on the threshold of a new year. When the estate was opened, the turmoil began anew. His finances were in tatters. Divorce dredged up debts. The DC-3 drained any savings, and rumors whispered that he left no will. His ex-wife claimed insurance. His mother contested control, and the family brawled in court. Even stranger, Ricky had a 5th child, Eric Jude Crew, born in 1980 from a brief affair. Initially denied paternity, Ricky later acknowledged it in court, agreed to $400 monthly support. But that faded too when the legal battles flared after his death. But the final twist would shake the industry. In 2011, his estate sued Capitol Records, claiming up to $250 million in unpaid royalties from digital sales and streaming. That suit was quietly settled in 2014, resolving claims and paving the way for a bigger showdown. Then, in 2020, the estate sued Sony Music over foreign streaming royalties. Sony had been deducting up to 68% of international streaming income through internal charges. In September 2020, they settled for $12.7 million and agreed to increase streaming payouts by 36% going forward, one of the largest legacy label settlements in music history. Suddenly, Ricky's kids began seeing the fruits of his catalog. Finally. Now, let's look at the man behind the myth. Ricky's lifestyle over decades shows dramatic highs and heartbreaking reversals. He owned Rolls-Royces and Cadillacs in his peak, the flash of Hollywood tucked into every engine hum. In later years, he sported muscle cars and Fender guitars like badges of survival. His watch collection? Early on, he favored classy Belovas. Later, he upgraded to Rolex Datejusts, status symbols of a legend. Real estate included that iconic Cape Cod home on Camino Palmero, showpiece LA Estates, and the Mulholland Mansion. He invested in music publishing rights. His catalog remained the one valuable asset he never lost, even when cash dried up. Later, he held stakes in small record label ventures and owned recording copyrights locked in his estate. The big lesson: in celebrity, lifestyle often outpaces income, until estate and royalty rights become the true currency. Ricky's fortunes reversed. Peak fame, sharp decline, near ruin, then redemption through music rights and settlements. The pivot to monetize legacy via litigation is a blueprint many estates follow today. Maintain rights, fight for royalties, and your voice can echo long after the mic shuts down. His story is one of dazzling highs, brutal betrayals, and a comeback that came too late. Yet, decades after that silent plane crash, his music is still streaming, his image still iconic, and the royalties finally finding their way home. Maybe that's the real legacy. Not just what he left behind, but what still resonates. If this story moved you, hit that like button. It helps more people discover the truth behind the fame. Drop a comment below.